What's up, Dragon Brood? Today is our 12th installment of the Kaldheim preview reviews. Today is January 16th, and it's a Saturday, so I gotta make sure I have my date straight there. But yeah, we only have about 7 cards to cover today, so it's not gonna be a long video. But they are pretty interesting ones, so it should be worthwhile. And before we get into that, don't forget to hit the like button here to help me out so more people see these previews. Plus, check out the other ones we've done. This is our 12th one. We have 11 other ones. But more importantly, hit the subscribe button. That'll help us reach our 10,000 subscribers by February 1st. But for now, let's go check out Kaldheim cards. Alright, we're going to start with Tyrite Sanctum. This card is a land, it's a rare, taps for colorless. You can pay 2 and tap it. Target legendary creature becomes a god in addition to its other types. Put a +1/+1 counter on it. Or you can pay 4 colorless and tap it, sacrifice this card, put an indestructible counter on target god. So this is neat for a few reasons. One, it feels like there's some flavor going on here, probably in the story, that the stone can turn legends into gods or whatever. So that's kind of sweet. Being able to make something indestructible is also very cool. God decks will probably be a thing, so this probably has a home. The downside would be if these decks end up being more than 2 colors, because once you go into a 3rd or 4th color, it can become hard to play more colorless lands. That being said, if you have a way to search this out, or you have a 2-color deck that relies on gods, this probably has a home. So I'm not going to poo-poo on this one too much. I think there's probably a spot where this can actually find some real action. Alright, next up we have Cosmos Elixir, 4 colorless, artifact, rare. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card if your life total is greater than your starting life total. Otherwise, you gain 2 life. My first instinct when I see this card is to put it into a control type shell, right? Where you're just wanting to gain life every turn, kind of stall that clock, buy you time to get to the cards you want. But then I have the thought of, well, what if this just goes into any type of deck that already wants life gain stuff? Because sometimes the problem becomes if you don't have a way to trigger a life gain effect for the turn, you may not be able to get your triggers, your counters, whatever it is your deck's trying to do. In this instance, you can guarantee you're going to get 2 every turn. So then something like that Griffin Airy or anything along those lines will guarantee you that you're going to get that extra life you need, along with something else, obviously, to get you that extra amount. But when you need a guarantee every turn to get a trigger, this is actually pretty good. And then, if you just happen to be if you're at 21 or more life, then you're going to get extra cards, and that can't hurt. So I think this card's going to find a home. Again, maybe not more than like 2 copies in a deck, but it is actually pretty interesting. Alright, we've got Maja, Bredagard Protector, 2 colorless, green, white, legendary creature, human warrior, 2/3. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 white human warrior creature token. I like a lot of what this card's doing. It is a legend, so you're not going to play more than probably 1 or 2 in your deck. However, because of the cost, you're not going to play more than 2 anyway, most likely. And that sort of becomes my drawback to the card, is that it costs 5. Now, that being said, it is a human warrior. There's warrior decks, there's also human decks, so it can fit into either of those. Maybe it just goes into an aggro shell where you just want a way to get extra creatures and pump your team. Like, that's a thing. But there are some, like Selesnya landfall decks that care about something like this. Getting to give all your creatures bonuses while also making 2/2s, because you're making a 1/1 that comes in with the bonus. Playing this alongside something like Felidar Retreat means you're making a 3/3 and a 2/2 every turn when the land comes into play, so that's pretty sweet, right? It does a lot of little things. It's an interesting card. I think I'm going to give this a thumbs up. I just don't know the exact home it would go in yet. Alright, the Raven's Warning, colorless, white, blue, for a rare Saga. Chapter 1, create a 1/1 blue bird creature token with flying, you gain 2 life. Chapter 2, whenever 1 or more creatures you control with flying deal combat damage to a player this turn, look at that player's hand and draw a card. Chapter 3, you may put a card you own from outside the game on top of your library. Now, my first thought here was to play this in a Azorius Flyers type deck, which, by the way, I have 1 or 2 of those here on the channel from this last season. Feel free to check it out. The deck, actually, I gave it an update, so if you do go to the deck that's attached to it in the descriptions, you'll actually get an updated deck list. That said, I'm not sure if this is the card that deck is looking for. Making 1 more, like, 1/1 flyer is nice. It's not great, but you do gain 2 life, so that's got to count for something. The next turn, when you deal damage, you're going to get to draw a card. You get to see your opponent's hand. That matters in the sense because a lot of times you're playing counters, but you also want to play a creature. And that'll let you know if you need to hold up to stop something next turn, or if you can actually freely run something out. So it's not like It's a huge benefit, but that information does matter. Now, chapter 3 is a little interesting because what do we get out of the sideboard, right? Are we getting just another creature? Are we getting maybe a Linvala we leave over there so we automatically have indestructible or hexproof as needed? Do you maybe leave something like a full set of Warrior Angels there, right? So you can start just getting your biggest creature every turn and guarantee you hit that. I don't know. Maybe. Or does this just belong in some other deck, like a, let's say, possibly a party deck that's playing blue and white? You get a 1/1 that's not necessarily a party creature, but you do gain some life, and then the next turn you get to draw a card, and then maybe, well, you do have to have a creature with flying to draw the card, so maybe not. And then the third one, you'd be able to go find whatever you want, right? But some of the party decks are already playing like Winota and stuff. This would be a 1/1 that's not a human. So I don't know. There are some spots where you could use this. I just think right now my initial thoughts are my applications are not going to be the best thing for this card to do. It probably belongs somewhere completely different. Emmerstern Predator, 2 colorless, red, black, 3/3, flying vampire dragon. Okay, I think this is only the second vampire dragon we have. I'm not, obviously I'll be proven wrong in the comments because there's always somebody who wants to tell a content creator how stupid we are. But I think, and if so, this is cool because there hasn't been one in a long time. The abilities, though, are whenever Emmerstern Predator becomes tapped, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on Emmerstern Predator. Alright, sacrifice another creature. Emmerstern Predator gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it. Also cool. Yeah, I like this card. I like this card quite a bit. It's 4 mana for a 3/3 flyer, which isn't great, but you can give it indestructible, so that's something to think about. Actually, here's an interesting thing I just thought about, right? You could block, sacrifice something to give it indestructible. Its own ability will tap it, so then you can remove something from a graveyard and put a +1/+1 counter on it. That's actually pretty slick on the first turn. So in a way, you're kind of getting a 4/4 for 4 that flies and has an ability. So that's kind of neat. I hadn't really thought about it. So literally, like, I was thinking about it, then like processed it out. But like, oh, it's going to tap. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And also think about there are applications, right? A lot of decks are playing stuff like Agadeem's Awakening and things like that. Maybe they're playing Croxas or Ox of Agonis. Like, this can remove those things from their graveyards. This is also just a hard creature to remove because you can give it indestructible. It also doesn't care about token or non-token creatures that you're sacrificing. So if you have anything that makes tokens, you can make this thing infinitely indestructible. And the fact that it taps to its own ability is also really nice. So this is a good all-around card. I'm probably going to find a place to play this. Blessing of Frost. 3 colorless and a green snow sorcery. Distribute X 1/1 counters among any number of creatures you control, where X is the number of snow, or the amount of snow spent to cast this spell. Then draw a card for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. This card has a lot going on, and it's pretty good. Okay, again, let's come back to previous conversations we've had on the other... By the way, if you haven't checked out the other videos, you probably should. But on our other review videos, we talked a lot about why snow... I'm not going to say it's dominant or whatever, but somewhat problematic in the sense that you're just incentivized to play snow lands because random situations like this come up, right? Even if... There is a world where even if I'm playing mono red and I'm attacking and I have Robber of the Rich, my opponent has this, I'm incentivized to have Snowland, so when I cast this, I can give my creatures bonuses and get extra cards, right? But even outside of that, imagine playing this in something like Selesnya counters, right? Where you already have ways to double your counters and all this other stuff. Like, you could be playing this, put a counter on 3 or 4 different creatures, and get a pile of cards, all off of 1 card, right? And that's if you even need the cards, because a creature might be big enough to just get the game done and over with there. So there's so much stuff going on with this. I think this is a very good card. And, again, you can just play it in any aggro deck. It doesn't even have to be a counters deck, right? Like, if you put it on two different creatures and they're 4/4s plus, well, now you've pumped up 2 creatures, you've gotten 2 cards, still get to attack, do everything else like you normally would. This is a pretty good card. Real strong stuff. I don't know if it goes into a snow-based deck, but it probably just goes into various aggro decks, and you just play snow land. Alright, and the last card we're going to talk about today is Arnie Brokenbrow, which, by the way, if there's a card that has a name in the set that absolutely belongs, it's got to be Arnie Brokenbrow. Seriously. 2 colorless and a red, 3/3. kind of a little off center there. I promise you though, it's a 3/3. Legendary creature, human berserker, haste, has boast of 1 colorless. You may change Arnie Broken Brow's base power to 1 plus the greatest power among other creatures you control until end of turn. This card's pretty good, right? Okay, so you can spend 3 mana for a 3/3 with haste. That's already playable in a lot of scenarios. But at any point after that, like 1 mana basically can pump its power lots. Like assume you're playing this alongside even like a Bone Crusher Giant or an Anax, or maybe even a Terror of the Peaks, right? That's a thing. Maybe among something like Lovestruck Beast, right? Like these are big creatures that people are already playing, that you run this alongside that, and now you're attacking with a 5, 6, 7 power thing. Who knows? And even more fun is it does have haste. So if you're playing alongside other haste creatures, that's a threat too. Or honestly, I like having haste creatures to play post-combat. So you can have something to go after like an Ugin, even if they sweep the board or whatever, right? That's a thing. So there's, well, not haste post-combat. I'm speaking too fast. Either way, you know what I'm saying. You get a chance to take out Ugin with it. But there's a lot of things just going on with this type of card. I think it's really good. I don't know if Berserker is going to be a tribe. I know we've seen it on a lot of cards. But realistically, just a good quality aggro creature that has a decent upside. So I'm about it. And that's it. That's all today. It's very quick and simple. Lots of interesting cards. And honestly, this has probably been the biggest run of cards that I think I've been high on, in the sense of they're things I want to build around, things I want to put into decks. So that's actually always a bonus when we get to see that many cards and say like, yeah, that one, I have a home, I'm thinking about this, I want to do this. So like, that's always exciting. So yeah, definitely look forward to this. Like I said, if you haven't checked out the other videos, we have several. We have 11 to be exact. This is number 12, talking about all the cards every day as they get previewed. And then we just go over them and see what we think. And don't forget, starting next weekend, I'll be having deck lists rolled out so people can start seeing different decks with some of the cards. And we're going to do a couple of streams, so if people want to ask questions about deck ideas, how the cards interact, anything else, that'll be available. We're going to try to do one on Twitch, one on YouTube, so keep an eye out for that in the announcements. Also, if you haven't, consider subscribing. One, you'd be helping us get to our 10,000 subscribers by February 1st, but you'll also know whenever those other streams go live, because I'll send out something, and if you're a subscriber, you'll get the message and be notified. But that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.